All right. We are going to look at Proverbs chapter 23 this evening. When you sit down to eat with a ruler, observe carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat if you are given to appetite. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. Do not toil to acquire wealth. Be discerning enough to desist. When your eyes light on it, it is gone, for suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle towards heaven. Do not eat the bread of a man who is stingy. Do not desire his delicacies. For he is like the one who is inwardly calculating. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. You will vomit up the morsels that you have eaten and waste your pleasant words. Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of your words. Do not move an ancient landmark or enter the fields of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is strong. He will plead their cause against you. Apply your heart to instruction and your ear to words of knowledge. Do not, and I say now, again, do not withhold discipline from a child. For if you strike him with a rod, he will not die. If you strike him with the rod, you will save his soul from Sheol. My son, if your heart is wise, my heart too will be glad. My inmost being will exult when your lips speak what is right. Let not your heart envy sinners, but continue in the fear of the Lord all day. Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off. Hear, my son, and be wise, and direct your heart in the way. Be not among drunkards and among gluttonous eaters of meat, for the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and slumber will clothe them with rags. Listen to your Father who gave you life. Excuse me. I'll say this again. Listen to your Father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth and do not sell it. Buy wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes observe my ways. For a prostitute is a deep pit. An adulteress is a narrow well. She lies in wait like a robber and increases the traitors among mankind. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaining? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those who tarry long over wine, those who go to try mixed wine. Do not look at wine that is red when it sparkles in the cup and goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a serpent and stings like an adder. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart utter perverse things. You will be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea, one who lies on the top of a mast. They struck me, you will say, but I was not hurt. They beat me, but I did not feel it. When shall I wake? I'll say again. When shall I awake? I must have another drink. Now, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to look in my Bible, where at the bottom of, I got an itch in my eye, I don't know why. I'm not trying to be a poet, I just know it. At the bottom of my Bible, it talks about, if you go through the chapter and look at the numbers, it tells you what each verse is supposed to mean. So, we're going to look this up. And see what every verse means. The first part says, when you sit down to eat with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you. And how it describes it. Well, let me read the whole thing. It says, and put a knife to your throat if you are a man given to appetite. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. The book I was reading in, it didn't show this part, but I'm going to tell you what this stands for. It says, unrestrained appetite is doubly dangerous. It may be a source of disgrace in the point where undue influence may be applied. Verse 4, which says, do not overwork to be rich, because of your own understanding cease. And that basically is, material wealth is like a vapor. It's soon gone. Verses 6 through 8 says, do not eat the bread of a miser, nor desire his delicacies. For as he thinks is in his heart, so is he. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. The morsel you have eaten, you will vomit up and waste your pleasant words. It says, no real fellowship is developed by dining with a person who does menial calculations about what you are costing him while you eat his food. Verses 10 and 11 says, do not remove the ancient landmark, nor enter the fields of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is mighty, he will plead their cause against you. Their Redeemer in Israel, the close relative of a financially troubled landowner, could buy the land back, thus redeem it. Here the Lord will be the close relative of the fatherless. Verses 13 and 14, do not withhold correction from a child, for if you beat him with a rod, he will not die. You shall beat him with a rod and deliver his soul from hell. This truth must be considered seriously by those who have children. Correction and wise physical punishment have an impact for good. That should be something that should be considered for those who are against spanking children. Verses 17 to 18, because we're skipping ahead here, it says, "Do not let your heart envy sinners, but be zealous for the fear of the Lord all day. For surely there is a hereafter, and your hope will not be cut off." The promise of a hereafter means there will be sooner or later a reward for those who fear the Lord. Verses 19 through 21, "Hear, my son, and be wise, and guide your heart in the way. Do not mix with wine bitters or with the gluttonous eaters of meat, for the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and drowsiness will clothe a man with rags. Bad company corrupts good persons, as well as good manners." Skipping ahead again, verses 26 to 28, "My son, give your heart and let your eyes observe my ways. For a harlot is a deep pit, and a seductress is a narrow well. She also lies in wait for a victim, and increase the unfaithfulness among men." Basically, it says the wise men of Israel never cease warning against the harlot and seductress. The corruption of character involved in debauchery was considered nearly fatal. Verses 29 through 35, "Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contention? Who has complaints? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those who linger long at the wine, those who go in search of mixed wine. Do not look on the wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly. At last it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart will utter perverse things. Yes, you will be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea, or like one who lies at the top of the mast, saying, 'They have struck me, but I was not hurt. They have beaten me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake, that I may seek another drink?'" A classic statement of the dangers of alcohol consumption. Like many proverbs, it calls on the young man to look beyond short-term pleasure to long-term consequences. I basically repeated what I had just read before in the other book, but of course the Bible goes in more detail, and I just thought for some who might not understand it, I would break this down, and I think it's good to do that every once in a while. Just something to think about. As always, these are the words of the Lord.